Hello and welcome to the Edge of Midnight channel with me, Jason, as your host. I've just been trying out different tactics on Bloons. Seeing what would happen. I think this is the 5th game I've tried today. Seems to be going quite well. Now, what are my favourite games? That's what I was thinking about today. I would put Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout, the original 1 and 2, Fallout 3, Fallout 4 for different reasons, and action role plays. Yeah, I like an action role play, Mass Effect, whatever you want, but it's got to have a good story. I've got to feel something for the main character, some reason for me to be doing whatever I'm doing. It needs to have a good story, but it doesn't need to be a grandiose, epic, cinematic, call it what you will. It doesn't need to be a super amazing story if the characters draw you in. After all, who doesn't like Garrus in Mass Effect? We can all remember Jack. Talia. It doesn't matter how long ago I played these games. I don't really have a problem remembering them. And I can remember some of the quests and storylines from EverQuest, the original. But these days, you don't see as many really good storylines. If you say to someone, I played the Mass Effect games, can you suggest a game that's got an epic storyline, that's got characters, that's got action, that's sci-fi? There's not that many. And most of them are on console. People suggest to me Horizon, and I might pick it up one day. I do also like Japanese games. Now there's two types of Japanese games I like. The original type is roleplay games, so-called JRPGs. It doesn't matter about the graphics. I could still play Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9 and 10 without any concern about graphics. Not the enhanced versions, I could go back and play the originals. Because the story matters. I mean, no, it shouldn't be spoilers for Final Fantasy X, but I mean, come on. Right at the end of Final Fantasy X, when Tidus, it turns out he's been basically dead all along. He was taken by sin. I mean, this is the primary character that you've been following for the entire game. Is there many games that the West have come up with that can match that? Some people say Final Fantasy X, too cinematic, too many cutscenes. But I actually like that. And whether you like the decisions and the end of Mass Effect 3, even if you discount that last 20 minutes of Mass Effect 3, building those characters, going through the quests, living the threat to the universe in the Reapers. It's something that actually stays with you. With games like Battlefield, Call of Duty, all this battle royale stuff, not really interests me at all. I'm not against that kind of game. I used to play the old versions of Counter-Strike and Unreal Tournament and that, but I don't feel the need to prove myself against another human being. I haven't for a long time. Maybe it's because I'm getting old. Probably is. But I don't need to get a scorecard. I've been through that with EVE Online. When I was at my best, I came close to being in the top 100 killers in EVE Online. You can look up my character Queber, Quebber. I was part of all of the major battles, both in that character and my old character, which was Roller Gate. All of the big battles that were reported on by the news, I was there. I was in a carrier. I was in a dictator. I was part of those, but I stayed up for 14 hours at a time for those battles. Paola sat with me and made sandwiches because I was so tired by the end of it. But I remember them. They were epic. So I don't need to do the scorecard thing anymore. I don't need to beat my fellow human being in a game anymore. I much prefer cooperative, working together, blowing up an AI enemy, monsters, aliens. I prefer that. I love the idea of things like World of Warcraft, even though World of Warcraft isn't my favourite MMO. But I can respect the idea of a group of people getting together, running a high level raid, and if any of them mess up, if any of them make one mistake, then the entire group can wipe. It takes patience. It takes intelligence. It's learning what's called the metagame. the high level game at the top of the tree. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with Fortnite or any of the others. Although I do think they're going a bit too far into the addiction side. We've all been in the position where the media blames games for everything. Look at GTA 5, GTA 4. If something happens in the world, it's much easier to blame an object instead of taking responsibility ourselves. Let's see, let's go on to Star Trek. Anyway, so I like that there's lots of different type of games, just a lot of different type of games don't interest me. Everybody's unique. I can play games like Star Trek Online. I love the PvE side of it, where you go off and fight the Borg, or the Klingons, or the Romulans, or whoever is the latest, newest enemy. I like the freedom of not having to be that good at these games. And I think that's it. I think now that I don't get involved with the addictive scoreboards and ranking systems and oh my god, something new is coming out this week, I've got to grind through and get hold of that one new item that's come out this week because it'll disappear after a week and then my life will not be worth it. I don't have to do that anymore. I can still enjoy the game. I can still be part of whatever I want to be. And I think that's a good thing. There is something about games, because of the interaction level, that is very different from books. I will state now that I absolutely love books. Mainly science fiction these days, but before my wife died, she bought, I think it was 52 books on Audible, specifically for me to read when she was gone. It was pretty amazing, and those books have in a way kept me alive. What am I reading at the moment? Well, what am I listening to with the audiobooks? Dresden Files. So that is a great series. I've just finished the Monster Inc. series of books. someone out there needs to sort out their exhaust. And I'm also reading let me check exactly. Alright, just let me check, because I can't remember the full name. The Undying Mercenaries series by, I think it's B.V. Lawson. I'm on the 7th book in the series, and it's a series where if you go into it, you'll read the first book and then you'll think, okay, sometimes I read one book of a series and I'll go off. No, you read the first book of that's the Undying Mercenary series, and by the end of it you'll think, okay, I'm getting the second book, and then the third book, and then the fourth book. I think there's 10 books in the series, and I am not getting bored at all with it. I go through a book every couple of days of it, which is pretty amazing. And it's such an enjoyable series. I won't spoil it by telling anybody anything, but if you're into books, the Undying Mercenary series is a really good one. Let's see. Let's see, what do we need? We need engineer to do this. I get distracted very easily. As you can probably tell from these talks, I don't stick to one subject, unfortunately, and that's probably a bad thing. I sort of wander. That's, I think, the hardest thing about doing this online. I'm always getting distracted. Let's do this small one. So put something simple. Hold it. Trying to get to the gold one down there. So let's do another simple one. Oh, another very simple one's come up. I may do a tutorial on these games that I play, but I think I'd find it very hard to teach someone how to play these games. As I said, I'm not the best at them, and anything you learned from me, I can tell you my history in the games. Like in Anarchy Online, I was part of some of the major original story plot points that were done by players and became part of the canon. And for anybody who remembers the original multiplayer online game Meridian 59, which you can still get on Steam, I was part of one of the very early Hunter series who actually went around and hunted PvPers, because we're talking 1998, 1999. This was way earlier, before Major League PvP started happening, before player against player. And in that game, the killers in that game were very sneaky. It was a real, how can you put it, negative thing to be classed as a killer in those games. It wasn't anything like what you see today, where PvP has become the norm. Back then, these people would kill you, take your items, and they could physically destroy items that you had worked for the entirety of the game, and we're talking 2-3 years worth of work, and you couldn't go to the admins or the mods or anything. They wouldn't bring them back. If they killed you, they could open your backpack, they could take out your special items, and they could drop them in the lake at the middle of the game, and that item would completely de-res and it was gone. Nothing there for you to get back. It's why it makes me smile when I see people talk about a lot of the PvP and stuff that goes on these days. Well, that's not a fail. It's a different world now. Gone are the days of permadeath in games, although it has a bit of a revival. But if you win at PvP in World of Warcraft, you gain a rank or something. But you don't have any loss. One of the only games that doesn't do that is EVE Online. You can lose your items very easily in EVE Online. And that is why I played EVE Online for 6 years or 7 years. And when you went through a gate that joined the systems together, you never knew what was on the other side. And for the entire time of playing that game, I was never felt bored. I never felt like when I undocked in a ship that everything was going to be the same. I remember travelling in what would be equivalent to the wildlands, 0-0 and low security sectors. And I was just minding my own business, wandering around, and I come through this gate and there's 45 ships there, 45 ships camping the gate. And I look around, and by the time I've loaded up on grid and looked around, I see all these people starting to lock me up with their targeting system. And I was completely wasted within seconds. It was hilarious. I was never bothered about losing stuff in that game because I took the risks. If you die in EVE, it's usually because you've either took a risk or you haven't thought and planned ahead. It is a game that punishes stupidity. Now, let's see. I am going to finish this recording in a bit once I've done these guys. I've been talking for quite a bit. I always keep telling myself that I'm going to set up a... That's my apology, that's the dog. Obviously someone outside is daring to get in their car, which we all know should not be allowed. My 2 dogs are wonderful. I love them. As I've said before, they're rescue dogs. I always try to go to somewhere called Animal Lifeline in the UK. This is a wonderful place that looks after such a lot of dogs. They never put dogs down unless the dog is actually to the point where, for its own health and well-being, and it's at the end of its life. That's the only time. They've got dogs there that have been in the kennels for years, and these dogs become part of the family and live in the house there with them. It's a wonderful place, and they don't allow you to go to them and pick out your own dog. This is the first thing. that you learn, they actually interview you. They come to your house, they check you out, and then they'll go back to their sanctuary, and then they'll pick 2 or 3 dogs which they think will fit you, not the other way round. And this is the nice thing about Animal Lifeline. They have always picked the right dog for us. And by that I mean we've had 3 different dogs from them, and each time the dog has died, usually through natural causes, getting so old, I've just rang them up and said, who do you think will fit? And you'll go and see this dog, and it's amazing. They always pick the one that will fit you really well. And I will always go back to Animal Lifeline, no matter what. And that was another example of me getting distracted and segueing into a different subject altogether. But that's okay. Right. Okay. This is Jason signing off for now. Thank you for listening, and I hope you're having a lovely day.